Finally, after a few days off, back at it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the off board, which is this is the on board and this would be the off board. So I believe. So anyways, we're going to just make sure the orientation is correct before we start putting all the parts together. We can see this kind of pattern right here. We've got this kind of like little Y-shaped doohickey here, which makes a lot of sense for that. So that's going to be where the diodes are. Now pay attention, obviously, because the diodes have a polarity to them, so you need to make sure that those are set the correct way, and as well as these caps. Okay, so there's a positive and negative side. So it's pretty obvious on there. It's got this little piping, it's pretty easy to orientate them when they've got that kind of an obvious, little cutout in there. But we've got this all up here. It's pretty easy to see. So we've got the resistors and everything like that, but we've also got the shot of this right here, which is going to be, this is the off board. So we just need to go ahead and get all of these components there. Looks like there's, let's see, 6, 7, and then we've got another 8. So we got about 15 pieces that we got to go through and get all those. So we're going to wire those out before we start soldering them down, just make sure that we've got all the right components. We'll do that right now. So when I was looking around through this is already labeled off board, so this should be all of our resistors, and looks like, not sure all this is supposed to be for what I think it is, because I don't see how these are being used the same way. They maybe are. I just don't see these particular pieces here. So they must be between something else. I'll just have to figure out what those are going to be. I just assume that they're just going to be part of the off-board stuff. But either way, it's clear what's on here. And they're pretty obvious. But we've got our resistors right here. Now we have to read these individually so we know what they are, because they're not obviously the same thing. So they're not labeled the way they were before. And the other kit, the Rosamp kit, actually had individual things for 5K, 10K, 1.7, all that kind of stuff. So you literally just pull them out of the bag as you need them and put them right there on that. But this is a little bit more, you got to know what you're doing. So you definitely cannot build, and I wouldn't recommend it anyways. But if you don't have one of these, then you're kind of wasting your time. You'd just be guessing. But it's cool. This is pretty much everything that we're going to need for these pieces. As you can see, those are the three. These are the 22s, which are right here. Okay. And then the 47s are all right. Okay, they're called Holy Grail caps, so I would assume those are the 47s. Yes, they are. Okay, so we got the 47s right here. Sorry, bumping the camera everywhere. But yeah, we can see that those are the 47s right there, and then on the other side are the 22s. And then we've got these long brick style resistors. And then we've got a cap that's going to go across that over here somewhere. I guess it's it's that guy. So we'll go ahead and just part this out and again put it together. But it's nice that this stuff is pretty much just ready to go for this particular board. And then we just got to find the diodes and that stuff. Oh, the last thing is this right here. These are called, I guess, the shorters. And what they are is just pieces of metal that just bridge the gap between these points right here. So when you're on the turret board, obviously the caps are going to go like this, but you've got to get a lead that goes between those. So that's what those things are going to be. So once those things get put on there, and then I'll figure that out. Cool. So now that we got this out of the bag, we can see that this is definitely the positive side of the terminal. So when you're looking at the schematic, that is the positive side, and then this would be the negative side. So you can actually see that the negatives on both of these points right here are actually connected. So that's a negative to a negative, so they're flowing in that direction. So actually, it's quite the opposite. It's going this way because it's the positive takes the intake, and then negative is the output. So, but anyways, that's the orientation that you want to be careful of. So this right here, the negative, it's a little bit different. The way I actually did this is because the negative is this side. So this is clearly marked with the positives over there, but it still has that little dimple that's cut out right there. So you can kind of see how that works, but it's basically saying negative is in that direction. So if you ever see something like this and you're not sure which side of the terminal it is, just look at the direction of the arrows. That means that that's the negative side. Kind of think in my planning stage, and again, PCB boards are extremely easy because really you just stick it through the holes and then you just flip it over and then you solder all these points. This is a little bit different because you do have to plan out what you're going to do. For example, we're going to have to put resistors on these posts. Now I looked at some of the gut shots. I'll put them up on the screen in a second. But what we're looking at is we want these all to look pretty much the same. You know, we want them to, when we're orientating them, we want to make sure that, you know, it shows what the voltage is, what the component is. So if you look at it like this, it's kind of cool to say where it says Holy Grail, and that's nice and all that stuff. But at the same point in time, if you're troubleshooting the amplifier, you'd rather see the component value and the voltage and everything like that right on top. Now, from what I can see, this little pretty much just sits right on top of that turret, so it'll get soldered. But here's the problem. If I soldered these leads first, it's going to be harder for me to get the points across there, okay? And even the resistors. So what I could do with the resistors, if I actually start with the resistors and those points first, I can actually put all those contact points underneath. And then when I'm done, I can just put this guy right there, solder these right to the tips, and everything else is already done. So I don't want to start with these caps. So we're going to put those aside, and then we're going to actually just focus on just the resistors. Which would be the kind of the lower parts here, and that will make a lot more sense to me in the long run. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll get to all the resistors and kind of make a little piece of paper with the layout and so what they are, since we don't know what these are until we test them. So I haven't memorized all these codes, but some people, they're mathematicians, they could probably say, oh yeah, or they just recognize what it is because they just understand how to build those things so much. So, but that's what we're going to start with. Okay, so got these first two things. I just wrapped around the bottom portion, kind of almost like you're doing a guitar string here. So we're going to try to divide the distance and just wrap it around the poles here. Obviously being careful because we don't want to bend or break this lead. But essentially just get it around there, kind of give it a loop, and that'll keep it in place and also give it a good contact. But just be careful, take your time, don't overbend these things, because just like a string, if you kind of pop, and then you can probably still solder a lead to it, but you just don't want to be too rough with it because this is pretty brittle as far as the metal. Looks like that component stuff is actually coming apart, so I'll be very delicate with it. But once we got that, leave enough space for the extra wires, and that's already snug to the board, so once we solder it's going to be a good contact. So just get it where we want it, and then we'll solder down. Looking good so far. Got some of the leads going, got the shorts. It was definitely smart to do the resistors first and the little shorts before putting these things on. These are a little hard to get to, but I did want to make sure that I could see everything after the fact, but I actually have got good connections already, so not too many parts to go, but I'm just taking my time. I want this to be as clean as possible, you know, without being ridiculous, but it's all pretty solid so far. Then we'll just clip those leads after it's done. Very, very good. So I want to point out something that I've never worked with turret boards before. PCB boards are a pain in the ass to begin with anyways, but what I'm ended up doing is I wrapped a lot of this all the way around instead of just snipping it to the length. This may bite me in the future if I ever have to remove it, because there's going to be so much solder around these points, it's going to be very hard to unsolder this. So I don't follow what I'm doing. If you don't think that's going to be something you're going to have to service, if you ever had to get one of these were like backwards and you didn't have it lined up properly, there's a good chance you'd have to kit these off. Now you could reclip it and resolder it to these things with this stuff still on it, and I don't think it would really make that much of a difference, but this may hinder me later in the future. So I don't know if you should be wrapping all this stuff around just instead of getting it to the length that it needs to be. So just as a thought, I did this and I may regret it later, but hopefully I build it correctly and it just works forever. Don't breathe that stuff. All right. Cool. So I've checked all the points, snipped all the little leads off and everything like that. It's got a lot of residue from the flux, but I'm very happy with the start of this. So again, I'm just gonna clean things up a little bit, try to move them not too much. I don't want to break leads and break the solder and stuff like that, but I'm pretty happy with that. So now that we got that, then we can lay these guys on top of where they need to go, because they just basically are fat and they just kind of sit on top of those rails. That's why it's definitely smart to do all the little underbelly stuff first. And then from what I can see, we got some dotted lines here. I guess those are the trace wires from what they're going to be all the way across, but I assume what they're going to be, because I look at the gut shots of the amplifier. There's not any, oh, I did forget a connection wire from here to here. Yep, definitely got to do that. Almost forgot this one from here to here. I had to jumper. Oh, there it is. So, yep, check your work. That's definitely something that needs to be there. Just going to go ahead and point out a massive mistake here. Not huge, but it's basically this guy right here is, I read it wrong. I saw this lead. This is where you can screw things up right in the beginning. So I thought it was supposed to go from here to here, but it's actually from here to here. So it's actually going to connect to these guys. But for some reason, I just looked at it wrong and got it wrong. So I saved myself. Check your work while you're going. Really just check it off. I mean, you could be sitting there marking this thing up and just pointing and just like put a little asterisk. Okay, I got that wire, I got this wire, I got that wire. But take your damn time. And again, this is a fatal mistake. I could have blown up the entire amplifier like this just from that one little stupid mistake. So take your time and make sure you know what you're looking at. And this is what I was talking about, like that wire. If I wrapped it way like crazy, I should be able to desolder that fairly easy and then just pull this wire around and just attach it to that, and that should be a pretty easy fix. Crisis averted. And that actually answers my question of wrapping these things too tight. That would have been a major bitch. So I definitely don't recommend doing anything but probably short leads to them so you can just pull them off, because they even did even a 3/4 wrap around there, and I had to desolder so much. I had to break out some braid, all that kind of stuff. So I'd probably just do like what I did over here, where it's just kind of like a little 1/4 wrap or a little 1/8 wrap, just so it's long enough to touch, but not to do that, and then just test your points. But yeah, it was a little scary little mistake. But anyways, what I was trying to point out when I actually did this, I guess those red wires that are going to be going across those leads, those get attached to the back, I would imagine, those points. So I think that's just how this is actually supposed to work. Anyways, just thought I'd just show you what I got through so far. But by all means, just be careful. Very happy with the build on the turret board. Very fun. It just feels so much more organic than building the PCB boards. These just feel like kind of like paint by numbers. This really feels like you're building a piece of art, and it just looks wicked awesome. I just love it. You gotta get all that residual crap off there, but I'm digging this, man. It feels so freaking awesome. It's just heavy. It's just great. Love it. Pretty easy layout. It's a question of like, do we want to put the Holy Grail right there? Do we want to put the what it is? Man, it is what it is. But anyways, I just snipped these leads. They just need to be just long enough. I think I'm just going to put the value, so to speak. Maybe I can see if I can see both, but yeah, it doesn't really say. But I think we're just going to have to put the value on top. I'd rather know what the values are more than the actual Holy Grail logo, which is fine. But anyways, just snip those leads, just get them as long as you need, and then once you figure that out, you can solder one point here. It seems like it's not even focusing, but you solder one point here, and then you can kind of readjust it and get it nice and straight and get it exactly the way you want, and then you can resolder it and hold it in place, and then just get the other side. That's it. And we are almost done with this board. Sweet. Well, that's my first turret board. I think that's awesome. I think I'm going to very, very much enjoy point-to-point building. Very, very cool. Super sexy looking. Yeah, yes, it's dirty. I'm going to clean that up. But that looks so cool. So much fun.